What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today's the big day. Something I've been excited for a long time. It's going to be the engine teardown and rebuild on the 59 CJ5. If you remember, if you've been following along when I pulled it out, I was real happy with how original it is. For those of you just tuning in, this particular Jeep had a snowplow setup, so this has an original hydraulic pump. I believe it was a dealer installed option. Heater hose. Oil filter was relocated and was torched off the bracket, so we're gonna try to make it more original on that case. But the F-heads are cool engines because beforehand they had the L-head, which is a flathead engine, and they wanted a little bit more power and torque out of these. So instead of really reinventing the wheel, they took basically an L-head block and made some modifications and designed an all new cylinder head. So it was good for an extra 12 horsepower. I know it doesn't seem like a lot, but the L-heads had around 60 and I think like 105 foot-pounds of torque. Real low, but they're real low RPM engines, and the F-heads were good for 72 horsepower and 114 foot-pounds of torque. I'll go over more about the specs here in just a little bit, the bore and stroke, stuff like that. But what makes these so unique is the fact that the exhaust valves are still in the block and your intake valves are in the head. So you only have 4 valves in the head and then 4 valves in the block. Another thing that's pretty unique about them is they're very tall. These engines are real top heavy. That's why I got it on a basically a 1-ton stand. The engine, I think, fully dressed is like 500, maybe 550 pounds with everything like you see it. It's just they're super top heavy, and the standard one leg stands can kind of get a little sketchy at times. This one does have an original fuel pump and vacuum pump, which I've never seen before in person. Very cool. I might be able to try to find a new diaphragm for it and rebuild it. That'd be super cool to have. And yeah, I'm real curious to see the inside of it. The odometer read around I think 8,600 miles, and judging by the condition of the rest of the drivetrain, I've already rebuilt the transmission, transfer case, axles. That odometer reading seems to be correct. So hopefully the inside of the engine looks as good as the rest of the components. So I just looked in the book. It's a 3 1/8 bore, and the stroke is 4 5/8. So it's a real long stroke engine, small bore, real good on torque. It makes peak torque at 2,000 RPM and max horsepower at 4,000 RPM. And during the rebuild process, I'll go over tips to keeping these things running good for a long time. If you plan on not tuning in, the biggest thing that I always tell people with these is they do not like high RPMs. I highly recommend keeping them under 3,000 RPMs. Ideally under 2,800 for extended amount of time. Your push rods are real long on it, going up to your intake valves. The connecting rods are very long. Not to say they're not strong at all. It's just, why risk tearing the engine up, Overdrives are real popular. This Jeep hopefully is going to get an overdrive installed on it, so it's going to bring the RPMs. So it has 538 gears, probably around 30 to 31 inch tires it's going to have. So the RPMs at 55 miles an hour is going to be around 2,300 RPM versus around 3,000 RPM without the overdrive. Probably around 2,800 without the overdrive. So, I mean, it makes a difference, and it'll really keep the RPMs down and, you know, keep it in that torque curve. So, all right, we're going to go ahead and start the teardown process. Basically, you can tear this whole engine down with 3/4 all the way down to 1/4 inch tool set. All standard, there's nothing metric on there. If it's metric, it was either an export model or something aftermarket. So open end wrenches, screwdrivers, socket wrench set, pliers, you know, a pretty basic tool set can get you going on tearing it down. So we're gonna go ahead and take the accessories off, take the fan off. We're gonna leave the generator and hydraulic pump as an assembly. The hydraulic pump is mounted via a saddle around the generator. Pretty cool setup. And later, once the engine's all tore down, I'll break these down and go through them and all that. But the main goal is getting the engine 100% done and then doing the accessories. So this is going to be 4 1/4 inch bolts holding the fan on. This is it's gonna be a long video. This whole series is gonna be long. I'm gonna film as much as I can, probably 99% of it. The whole rebuild process, measuring everything, miking the crankshaft, checking main bearing clearances, checking connecting rod clearances, filing piston rings, fitting piston rings, wrist pins. I mean, all that good stuff is going to be filmed. So if you can deal with the mundaneness, you know, you might be able to learn something if you've never rebuilt an engine before or new to these engines. So the generator, just like on all Willys, it's just a little 5/16 1/2 inch head bolt. We're going to go ahead and collapse the belt. And the hydraulic pump's not really giving us a lot of room. It's probably going to have to wind up cutting the belt. It's a nice original belt. Let me try to pry. Had to wind up cutting the belt off. It was stiffer than a board on there. Being in the same spot for 60 years. These engines came out in 1953 when the CJ3 model debuted. Your high hood flat fenders, what people mostly call them. So now we're going to take the generator mount off. So there's going to be 2 bolts on either side. Pretty unique. They're a shoulder bolt. Just gonna try to, pretty heavy. The generator's pretty heavy, and then I don't know how heavy this pump is. All right. So now we're going to take the distributor off. We've got a newer cap, looks like newer rotor points. So it looks like someone tried to get this running not so long ago. So it's just going to be one 7/16 bolt, 7/16 head. And that's going to mount the distributor to the block, and the other one is your main adjustment. Now this is probably going to be stuck in here pretty good, especially not having any oil, you know, spray up into the shaft area for so long. So I'm kind of just going to use the coil. It's kind of a little sacrifice. Yeah, it's not. There we go. That was easier than I thought. So we got a nice original distributor. Got the original Autolite tag on it. So this is going to go back in there, and it's going to get electronic ignition. Go ahead and take the coil off. Go ahead and take the carburetor off. It's going to have a couple cotter pins holding in the linkage. Go. So it's going to be two 9/16 nuts on studs, one here and then one between the valve cover. So I'm going to go ahead and get these off camera to save some time, and then also the fuel line. Fuel line disconnected. Got a nice original Carter YF. Seems to be still in good shape. Should clean up and rebuild nicely. Now we're going to go ahead and take the valve cover off. This will give us our first peek on the internal condition. And then back here we got the spark plug wire retainer, which is missing on a lot of Jeeps. Just going to leave it all assembled for speeding up the disassembly. These old nuts are wanting to stick in the socket. All right. So here's the condition. We still have oil sitting on top. It's pretty old oil. But other than that, I mean, oh, that's wiping right off. Smells great too. But at first glance, everything looks good. So cool. So we're going to get the head ready for disassembly. Going to go ahead and remove the crankcase vent line. This old school PCV system. It's got a PCV valve on the other side. I'll show you on the side valve cover. And that just takes the crankcase vent gases and puts it back in the intake. It still has all the original tubing retainers too, which is cool. Try to be careful and not tearing them up. There we go. And this is the original fuel line. It's my first one I've seen originally intact. Normally it's just a rubber line that people just throw on there. But I always thought it ran around the back of the engine, so it's basically following the route of the PCV line. And you got these clips, retaining clips for it, so just learned something. But now we're gonna go ahead and just take the dipstick tube out. Gonna go ahead and just remove the actual dipstick so we don't damage it. You see we got some of that yummy 40+ year oil on there. So it has the original gasket for the dipstick. And be careful taking the dipsticks out, because to my knowledge there's no new aftermarket ones available. So if we'll get lucky and just give it a twist, yep, got it free. There we go. So I'm gonna go ahead and take the head off. Go ahead and reset up the camera. Hopefully the angle's good. I got the tripod maxed all the way out. Just how tall this engine is. So now we're going to remove the rocker arm oil feed line. So it's just going to take oil from the oil galleys in the block, bring it up here, do a passage, and then lubricate your rocker arm shaft. Now while I'm doing this, over to the left, right here, that's your carburetor throttle linkage. The gas pedal connects mechanically down here, moves the linkage, and then that linkage is held in by a head bolt. Pretty simple. And then it goes across the valve cover to the carburetor. Alright, so the oil line's off. We're going to disconnect the spring so we can flop that out of the way. I'm just going to leave all this stuff intact and break it apart as a sub-assembly. Yeah, these are a little bit stickier than the others. So all these head bolts, pretty obvious, but there's a hidden one down here in the where the carburetor goes that'll fight you if you don't know about it. So go ahead and got just the one last one here. Go ahead and take the water neck off. Being careful not to break these off. They always seem to break off. I don't know if this water neck's original or not. It's in really good shape. Wow, that's an old thermostat. This engine's getting all new head bolts. You can reuse them if they're in good shape, because you know it's such low torque and not a lot of compression. If you're on a budget, so I'm gonna get that one down here. So I'm gonna have to take the rocker arm assembly off and not drop the nuts. This hog ring's already wore out on this Milwaukee. Kind of disappointed. But go ahead and just take the torque off evenly, because you know we have some of the push rods have tension on the springs. And I can't rotate this engine because the crankshaft bolts are hitting the back of the engine stand. And if you do one of these, it's just fine thread 3/8 nuts. It's nothing crazy. There we go. Here's the the rocker arm assembly. That was the #1 push rod. We'll inspect these later for straightness. All right, so I already got #1 removed. So we're going to remove the push rods and then label them 1, 2, 3, 4. It's just an old school thing to do, is put the push rods all back. You know, you got wear patterns and all that good stuff. This engine's probably got such low miles it really doesn't matter, but I'm going to do it that way. So I just got the push rod out, and I'm just going to put some painter's tape on it. I already wrote out 2 on it. Hopefully it'll stick. I probably got to brake clean it. Yep. All right. Go ahead and pull the head off. Always a couple stubborn ones. A lot of carbon buildup in the holes, holding everything up. Alright, so it's probably going to fight us a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and use this pry bar on the boss here. You got the boss on either side. I'm going to try to go in between the gasket. Oh, that was a lot easier than I was expecting. Nobody popped right off. Wow, okay. Moment of truth. See what the cylinders look like. All right. A lot of carbon. Cylinder walls are real dirty. Number 4 is real dirty. Number 2 is pretty clean. Top of the piston isn't. And I can't spin the engine over yet because these bolts are hitting. But here's the top of our exhaust valves. So head gasket. Yeah, it's gonna take a lot of cleanup. There's a lot more carbon in here than I was expecting. So, all right, we'll keep moving forward. We'll go ahead and take the water pump off. Go ahead and cut that oil line off too. That's your return line for your oil filter. It lubricates the timing gears and acts as a return. Oil filter canister. So we're probably gonna have to get these by hand. So you have this one. This goes all the way through the block, and then you have these shorter ones, and then you have one more at the bottom. And let me show you real quick. It's got a tubing clip under here. There we go. Tubing clip, and then we got our vacuum / PCV T. So go ahead and pop this pump off. All right, so we're just gonna give it some taps. Just got some of this tubing in the way. Here's our impeller. It's in really good shape. Still see some of the bare metal on the pulley wheel. Got a little bit of corrosion in the on the cylinder walls. Shouldn't be nothing that can't clean up. So now we're going to go ahead and jump over to the exhaust side. Hopefully the shadowing isn't too bad. But we're just going to take the manifold off. There's 5 bolts, and they should be brass nuts. So if they strip off or whatever, you can chisel them off pretty easy. They're brass. And then we'll take the fuel pump off. So this one pulled the stud out with it. Not a big deal. And that one's a different size. Oh, it's not a 5/8. All right, hold on. All right, got it out. I just used the open end wrench on it. Looks like it might have been an old repair. It's bigger than, it's a 7/16 thread. So we just had something leak pouring out. Oh, that's oil. You got oil pouring out of it. The number one. Huh. That's not good. It's a mixture of all kinds of stuff. We got a lot of carbon buildup I can see already in the exhaust ports. So now we're going to go ahead and remove the side valve covers, and now we'll be able to see all the lifters, and call them tappets in the book. So it's going to be this 1/2 inch head bolt here that just holds on your whole PCV breather system and also the valve cover. This engine's a little bit disappointing. I was hoping to be in a lot better shape, but it should clean up like new. It's going to take a little bit extra time. That oil has got me kind of worried while it's up there. Especially the engine sitting idle for so long. You know, normally that's a sign of a bad or wore out valve stem seal. Anyway, so the next thing holding the side valve cover on is going to be the throttle linkage bolt. 1/2 inch wrench again. And then our side valve cover is going to come off. And you have to remove this cover to adjust the exhaust valves. It's pretty long-winded too. All right. All right, well, that don't look too bad, the inside of here. So these are our exhaust valve springs and tappets here, and then these are the intakes. But the inside of here don't look too bad. We still have oil sitting on the bottom. That turned to sludge. And then here's the inside of the valve cover. Pretty dirty. And just remove the PCV valve and tubing. So we're getting closer. And next we got the fuel pump. It's going to be 2 1/2 inch bolts hidden in here. Going to need an extension and a socket to get to them. My hands are getting pretty dirty too. Oh yeah, this lighting's much better. I just turned the engine around. You can see the valley looks good. So now the oil pump. It's all these bolts here, these smaller 7/16. That's holding on your cover. And just to remove the pump as one piece, there's going to be 3 of the 1/2-inch head. There's going to be one hidden under here where my finger is, and then those 2. So they kind of make it confusion proof. And real quick, I might not be able to get it in there. Your distributor runs off the oil pump. There's the oil pump shaft, and your distributor shaft will go down in there. It's a cam driven oil pump. So when we go to put this back together, we got to make sure our cam timing's correct, and then also our oil pump meshes correctly, because the distributor only goes in one way. You can't, it's not like a more, you know, like a small block Ford or, you know, small block Chevy where you got multiple teeth you can put the distributor in. It only goes in one way. So the oil pump's very crucial on your distributor position. Here's an original oil pump. I can tell it's original because it's the older style. I'll show you in the book, and then when we go put the new one in, I'll show you the difference. It has to do with the internals of the pump itself. So to keep everything moving along, we'll go ahead and pull the timing cover off. Normally, this step right here, I'd go ahead and pull the exhaust valve springs, but I'm curious to see what our timing cover looks like, our timing gears. Actually, crankshaft pulley nut's going to be a 1 3/8. I don't want to use, well, let me, before we start putting heat to it, which is a last resort, spray some of this Freol on here. And I'm going to try to do it with the breaker bar, but real carefully, because we're wedged. Our crankshaft is, the crankshaft bolts and the dowels, which are nearly impossible to find, are wedged against the back of the engine stand. So that's why I was trying to use the impact. So let me just try to see if that little bit of Freol helped. Yep, it sure did. Cool. I've been using Freol instead of PD Blaster lately, and I've been super happy with it. I've used PD Blaster for years, but I think this is a superior product. It's more expensive, but it works. So normally these pulleys can be a pain. You can't get a puller behind them. You got a key shaft, you know, if you got corrosion and all that stuff, and you can't really pry behind them because this timing cover is very thin. And I want to reuse this pulley because it's a double pulley. I only have a single pulley as a replacement at the moment. A lot of parts are back ordered right now with all this bullshit going on. So all right, well, I'm going to keep messing with this off camera and save some time on the video, but I'll get it off and explain a little bit more. I did actually manage to get a 3-jaw. Maybe the last time I tried it, I didn't have the thinner ends on the puller. I don't really remember. It's been a while, but I tried to get behind it, and obviously the teeth didn't work. So I just got the next groove, and the impact didn't even click or anything. I didn't want to use a wrench to risk spinning off the puller, but it just walked right off. No, it didn't even keep. That's probably the most resistance it's had, is right there. So cool. All right. So now we're going to go ahead and take the timing cover off. So we're going to have all these bolts here, and then also I think 5 at the bottom that share with the oil pan, the 9/16. I haven't drained the oil out of this engine yet either, so figured I'd film that to see what 40+ year old motor oil looks like. That was the timing pointer. Forgot about that. That's an important piece not to lose. You could still go off the marks on the cover, but it just makes it a lot easier. And then these are standard bolts. You got to put a backing wrench on them. Of course, they're fine thread like everything on this damn thing. I'm not really a fan of fine thread stuff. They'll probably get replaced with new ones anyway. I'll just put some coarse thread bolts on there. But the rest of them I'm going to probably keep because they got the kind of the recessed head on them, more an original look. It's got the dropsies today. And then the ones for the oil pan are 1/2 inch. And then when we remove these, this pulley cover is coming off with it. Pulley shield. It's another part that's not required but hard to find if you do damage it or it's missing on your Jeep.